Welcome to the Top Business Leaders Show, powered by Rise 25 Media. We feature top founders, executives, and business leaders from all over the world.
Chad Franson here, co-host of the Top Business Leaders Show, where we feature CEOs, entrepreneurs, and top leaders in the business world. This episode is brought to you by Rise 25. We help B2B businesses reach their dream relationships and connect with more clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships, and get ROI through Done For You podcasts. If you have a B2B business and want to build great relationships, there is no better way to do it than to profile the people and companies you admire on your podcast. To learn more, go to rise25.com or email us at support@rise25media.com. Dennis Kelly is CEO of Postalytics, a fast-growing direct mail automation software company. Postalytics helps marketers do more in less time with streamlined production, integration into marketing tech stack, and real-time direct mail campaign analytics. Postalytics is Dennis's sixth startup. He has been involved in starting and growing early-stage technology ventures for over 30 years. Hey, Dennis, thanks so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm doing great, Chad. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, I appreciate your time. Tell me more about Postalytics and what you guys do.
So Postalytics is a software startup. It's a cloud-based system that enables marketers to essentially create an account, drag and drop direct mail templates for postcards and letters, pull in data from their CRM or marketing automation tool in order to send direct mail pieces out, and then schedule campaigns and be done. So there's a software tool that really deals with all of the complexity of direct mail production, with the tracking and analytics associated with sending out any type of marketing campaign, and then it helps marketers utilize the data they already have in their CRM marketing automation tools, just leveraging it in a different channel.
Is there kind of a story that goes behind how you came up with the idea?
Yeah, absolutely. So several years ago, I was reconnected with a brilliant software architect who I'd worked with in a couple of other startups. He had actually moved right near me, and so he reached out and we got together. And folks like this are always they've got something going on, but they've got something else in their head, right? That these engineers are always tinkering and coming up with some new great thing. And so he had a business where he was doing consulting for different software projects, and he had a product that he wanted to roll out to this audience, and so he decided to put together a little postcard campaign to complement the emails that he was sending, and he did that, and then he realized, I want to draw a line from the postcard, like the same way I do from my email, so I want them to respond and sign up for something. And there was no easy way for him to make that happen in a postcard and to track who responded to that postcard. And so he was developing some software on the side just for his own purpose, and then realized, I'm not the only person who has this problem. And so he started building some software, and he showed it to me. And this was back in 2013, and we thought, there's this massive investment going on in the marketing tech world, but the direct mail market, postal mail, has been largely ignored by the venture capital community and the tech world, but it's still this huge business. So there's got to be a way that we can attack this and kind of modernize the way that direct mail marketing is being done. And so our initial thought was, hey, let's take this software that he'd started, add some more things to it, and then we'll roll it out. We'll start selling to the people that are, kind of the incumbents in the direct mail world. And so we were selling to print service providers, agencies, big brands that have big direct mail departments. And, it was going okay. But, when you've been in the startup world for a long time, you can kind of feel when sales are kind of a slog and, the business just doesn't seem like it's going easily. Everything seemed to be difficult. So, after a couple of years trying a few things, we took a step back and said, all right, something's wrong here. We think we have a good product, but these people just don't seem to want to buy this stuff. So about the same time, we had some new leads come in from businesses that were saying, hey, guys, we just invested in Salesforce. We do a lot of direct mail. Why can't I make Salesforce drive the direct mail the way that Salesforce drives my email? And we use Salesforce for the center of all of our other marketing. Same thing happened. HubSpot customers came in asking kind of the same question. And we thought, you know what? There's a whole lot more of those people out there that are, investing in tech in their businesses and would probably want to do direct mail if it was easy and painless and kind of looked and acted and felt like their email marketing. And so we were able to take what we had done with that first product and reposition it, come out as Postalytics at the end of 2017. And that pivot has really been the thing that has allowed us to take off.
Was BoingNet the business that it kind of developed from?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And so a lot of the intellectual property we built that was the basis of BoingNet became the basis of Postalytics, but targeting a completely different audience and really solving an end-to-end problem for marketers.
So BoingNet was, as I mentioned, you have six entrepreneurial endeavors. Was BoingNet the fifth?
No, I don't count that one.
Oh, you don't count that one.
Yeah, so this is all one. It's still the same tax ID number between the two businesses. So simply a rename here.
Okay. So what about entrepreneurship? Given that Postalytics is your sixth entrepreneurial endeavor, what is it about entrepreneurship and starting your own thing that you find particularly invigorating?
Well, I think there are a lot of reasons that, over time, a person finds themselves, doing this over and over again. But I think some of the key things are that what I really enjoy doing is thinking strategically while getting my hands dirty. And so, I like getting things done. I like being very close to the people in the business that are, making things happen every single day. And what I found is, I started my career in a huge corporation and got some great training and met wonderful people. But I felt like my impact was pretty limited, and that in order to have a lot of impact, you end up getting very separated from the day-to-day operations of something. And so I was fortunate at a very young age to get pulled into a startup and just found the whole process invigorating. And, there's highs and lows and a lot of things that you experience in a startup and as an entrepreneur. But really, it's that idea of I'm building something and I'm thinking of 5 years down the road, but I'm actually accomplishing things today that actually move the needle.
So do you consider yourself an entrepreneur, a technology expert, or somebody who is focused on turning direct mail into a digital marketing channel?
Well, I can tell you there's a lot of people in my company who would not call me a technology expert. But I guess, at my heart, I'm an entrepreneur. And I love finding great people and building great products. And, I find that whole process very exciting and something that I enjoy doing over and over again. And Postalytics is the latest thing, and it's going great after that pivot that we mentioned. And my experience, that's not that unusual in a startup. Is you start down one road and then you've got to make tough decisions and sometimes stick a fork in it or take a fork in the road to go down a different path.
Do you have goals kind of moving forward with Postalytics?
Yeah. I think we are very U.S. centric currently, and so we are printing around let's say 1 million pieces of direct mail a month at this point. We're growing very rapidly, about 100% per year, and we see this growth continuing on outside of the borders of the U.S. We've just launched up in Canada, so we're excited to move outside of the U.S. border for the very first time, and we see the growth of the business continuing beyond North America, and also getting into more and more specific vertical industries that do a lot of direct mail. So there's a lot of growth ahead of us, both domestically and internationally.
Let's talk about some of your previous entrepreneurial endeavors. I believe the one prior to this was Wireless City Verizon. Was that right?
That's right. Yes, it was actually a retail operation. It was my only non-tech startup, and so I had jumped into that with a buddy of mine who had bought a couple of Verizon stores, and wanted some help kind of figuring out what to do with them, and got excited about the opportunity to kind of migrate folks from the flip phone world into the smartphone world.
Okay.
And so we were able to build a really nice business. We had about 50 Verizon wireless stores in 3 different states, and it was very much focused around the transition from the flip phone to the smartphone. And we had kind of maybe an early version of the Apple Store, where we had experts that were on staff that were there to help folks, make a decision to move on from the flip phone and learn how to use their smartphone, whether it's an iPhone or Android, whatever it may be. And we ended up doing really well on the whole thing. So a lot of fun, but I missed software, I missed tech, and so I was really psyched to get back into what we're doing today.
What do you think made you successful in retail, given that that was your first venture down that road, and then you missed tech? So your background was in tech, you tried retail, and it was successful. Why was that?
Well, I think that I had a great partner who had some retail experience, but also I think that approaching retail from a tech perspective has had some impact, right? So thinking about the user experience of somebody walking into a retail store, kind of from scratch, without a lot of history of how retail is supposed to work, and then applying tech to the backside, the back office as well, scalable tech at an early stage, I think really set the stage for us to be able to grow quickly and in a very efficient way. So I think there was an ability there for us to kind of marry our backgrounds a bit and to create something really cool.
How did your affiliation with Wireless City Verizon end?
We ended up selling the business to a private equity-based roll-up.
Okay.
And so, we had created quite a bit of concentration and market share in the states that we were operating in. And, we had very, very strong metrics and numbers. And this, PE firm wanted to get into distribution in those states. And so figured the fastest way to do it was to buy us.
Were you looking to sell, or did they come to you and it sounded like a good plan?
Yeah, no, they came to us. I never find that it's a good idea to. It's always a better idea to have people approach you if you want to sell something,
Yeah.
than the other way around. It was a relationship that was built out of some industry conferences and things like that, and over time, they just said, hey, we got to have this. So
when you so after you sold, did you already have the idea in your mind for Postalytics, or were you just kind of hanging out and it came to you? Like, how did that happen?
Well, that's a great question. I took a bunch of time off, kids were in high school, and I was able to spend a lot of time with the family, and then they went off to college. I started getting a little bit antsy, and that's where I ran into my current partner, who had kind of the original idea around BoyNet, and Postalytics really kind of snowballed and evolved out of that original conversation.
What about Adesso Systems? Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, sure. So Adesso, there's sort of a path prior to Wireless City where I had been involved in a startup called anyday.com back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And we built one of the very first online calendars. And so if you look at Google Calendar today, it's pretty much what we built back in the late 90s.
Okay.
And what's cool about Google Calendar is that you can get it on your phone, right? And it updates the web, and you can share. And so we actually built some software. We built a web-based calendar. We built software to synchronize the calendar data from the web down to your device. And so the devices at the time were primarily from Palm. And so, when Palm went public in early 2000, they came to us and said, hey, we need to have this. The calendar is such a huge part of, the experience for Palm. We want to extend that to the web. And, we need, we need to add some web knowledge and IP to our kind of hardware-centric product portfolio. So they bought Postalytics. I stayed on for a couple of years at Palm, working on their wireless products that were using the wireless web at the time to build out a whole series of tools. And so, it was really that experience that kind of led me to Adesso, where, we had built a wireless development platform for software companies or development corporations to be able to very quickly build little apps before the App Store, right? So you could build these little apps to keep your staff productive, whether they were, connected to a wireless network or disconnected, which back in the early 2000s, people were disconnected quite a bit on their device. So it was kind of that line that had me end up at Adesso. How did
that end then?
It did not end well.
Really?
Yes. So out of my 6 startups, that's my one. That's one that went in the wrong direction, and a lot of reasons. I think we were a little bit ahead of the market, right? So if you think about, as I mentioned, the app stores and the ability to download the apps were really the thing that lit a fire under the market to develop applications for your wireless devices. And they hadn't existed yet. But I think the other key mistake that we made was we raised too much money from venture capital too quickly. And I remember clearly, being cajoled and pushed by venture capitalists to, up the number that we were going to take. And I was a younger CEO, and I had a sales background, and I thought, you know what, go close the deal. We'll worry about it later. Well, a couple of years later, we ended up worrying about it quite a bit.
So when something like that happens, was your response just to figure out something else you can start, or did you think, I'm just gonna go get a job?
No. It was definitely, I need to go figure out something else to start, and that's, I took a little bit of time off, and I ended up going over and starting Wireless City shortly after that.
Okay. Did you learn any kind of valuable lessons about raising capital, or what lessons have you learned about raising capital?
Yeah. I think that it's really easy to let the tail wag the dog in the financing world, I'd had some really good success raising venture capital previously, and the ability to attract money can help cover up a lot of mistakes, and give you flexibility to kind of move and groove and get things done. But the idea that you should structure your financing strategy around what the financing markets want to give you is, I think, a flawed thought process. It's very easy to fall into that and say, firms writing checks of X size, therefore I need to build a strategy that allows me to take a check of X size and apply it to this business. And it really should go the other way. It should be a ground up thing. Say, my business is calling for this. Let's go find financing that fits that scenario. And so I think a lot of young entrepreneurs make that mistake, and they get kind of caught up in the siren song of the venture capital world. And the venture capitalists are off, they're out for themselves. That's what they do. It's their business. And you gotta stand up, and you gotta do what's right for you.
What was your first entrepreneurial endeavor?
Yeah, great. So I was, when I got out of college, I worked in Manhattan for Prudential Insurance, and I was selling corporate benefit plans to businesses. And had a great couple of years, enjoyed it a lot, but felt like I just wanted to get involved in something a lot smaller. And so a friend of mine who I went to college with and I were talking, and he and his brother were starting up at the time, a computer company. And so, it was up in the Boston area. I was in New York. I wanted to get out of New York, go to Boston. There was a young lady who I was dating that was up in Boston as well. The stars seemed aligned for me to quit my comfortable job where I was making really good money and jump into a startup where I was making nothing. And so I was young, in my 20s, and as was my buddy and his brother, who was young, and we made a lot of mistakes, but eventually figured it out. Got rid of the hardware. We ended up writing, just pulling out of the software and building it in a way that enabled. It was a healthcare software, so we were enabling nursing homes and retirement communities to do their bookkeeping online for the first time. And so prior to that, everything was done by hand. It was all manually done, typed up invoices, this kind of thing. And so, it took a few years, and that business eventually took off. We sold it, I think, 8 years after we got it off the ground to a larger healthcare software company.
At that point, were you kind of like you're an entrepreneur for life?
I was, and so that was, that was 95. I stayed on. I ran sales for that other company for a couple of years. And then, 97, the internet was really starting to bubble up, and I thought, hey, I gotta play in this, and so that led to the Any Day experience.
What kind of mindset? You talked about how you quit your high paying job to take a job that paid nothing. What kind of a mindset do you have to be an entrepreneur as opposed to just somebody who wants to get the paycheck?
Well, I think you have to have a lot of faith and confidence. Some might say irrational confidence. But I think at the end of the day, you have to feel in your gut that you'll figure it out. No matter what, you're going to figure it out, and you're going to land on your feet, and you'll think your way through it. You'll work your way through it. You'll do whatever it takes so that your fate is not tied so much to the fate of others, or the work ethic of others, or the decisions of others. Comes down to yourself. And so I think, I was fortunate. I had a lot of that mindset instilled in me at a young age by my parents. They pushed me to do a lot of, I grew up on a farm, so I was always working. And they pushed me to do a lot of kind of young kid entrepreneurial stuff, like mowing lawns and washing cars. And, I did all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of seemed natural to me to kind of take control of the things that were impacting my life.
Sure. During your journey, how have you kind of known or figured out that it was time to pivot or try something else?
Yeah, great. That's a great question. And I think it would be easy to point at certain things and say, well, it was obvious at the time. I had to make a really tough call and I had to do this. But in the times that I've done it, it's never black and white, right? It's not something that you immediately know, but it's more of an accumulation of evidence where you try, you test, you work with some rigor on things. And then I think your gut instinct over time gets developed as you have more data. And so I think that there are certain signs, right, that you need to be very concerned with. And the velocity of sales is such a critical one, right? Like, how long is it taking to sell this? How easy is it for us to get new customers to start using this? All of those types of things at the early stages of a business, you have to be very sort of hyper focused on. And, you always look back after a pivot and say, well, I wish I'd done it, a year earlier, of course, when it works out. But the reason why you didn't is because it wasn't like somebody was screaming at you, typically. It's that, well, you're very heads down, you're working on something, and you're accumulating, data and evidence about what's working and what isn't working.
You talked about the influence of your parents. Who have been some of your mentors? Maybe it's been them. And what has been some advice that you really found memorable?
Well, I think I've had a lot of great mentors over the years, and in a lot of different types of capacities. And both of my parents were very much people. They were people that worked very, very hard, and they expected nothing but hard work from my sister and I. And they also were very much believers in, kind of the American ability to go out and create something, and that there are no limits, really. And it doesn't matter if you're lower middle class kid in a farm, right, or whatever. Like, if you work hard enough and you have the right mindset, you can do a lot of things. And so I got that at a very young age from them. And then I had a great experience in college that was very challenging. I played football, and I was a really good football player in high school, and I went to college, and I was surrounded by a lot of other really good football players, as you can imagine. I worked really hard, and I felt like I should have been getting on the field, and I wasn't. And after some time, it became apparent that I was sort of, beating my head against the wall, and these coaches were never going to play me, and so I really wanted to quit. And I had some coaches, help me through that, and at the end of the day, I didn't quit. And in my senior year, I got a couple breaks, and things went great. I had a phenomenal on-field experience my senior year in college. And, I really learned at that point, like, you know what, if you really believe in yourself, which I did, like, I thought I should have been playing. I thought I was better than these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give up, don't quit, because, eventually there's going to be a break. And you have to be in the game in order to win. If you walk away from the game, or you decide not to start the game to begin with, you have no shot. And so that really helped inform my thought process later on, as I'm thinking about taking a lot of risks and starting a business, that, I kind of was able to see, hey, if you grind away, you're going to get a break at some point. And then you just got to be smart when you get that break, and execute and go.
That's great insight. Great story about your college and your football career. Hey, I have one more question for you, but first, tell me a little bit more about how people can find out more about Postalytics.
Yeah, absolutely. So Postalytics is on the web. We've got a great website with lots of great information about direct mail and how it can assist your email marketing, your digital marketing, and how automation is the smart way to do it now. That's at postalytics.com, Postalytics, postalytics.com.
Okay.
You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm active there, and a little bit on Twitter and other social, but mostly LinkedIn and online.
Okay, that's great. Sounds good. Hey, last question for you. When you are at a social event and you meet someone, and you get around to talking about work, and people ask you what you do, what do you say?
I say I start up businesses.
Okay, perfect.
I'm a startup guy. That's what I do.
Very nice. Very nice. Hey, Dennis, it's been great to talk to you. I really appreciate it. I loved hearing your stories and your experience, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It was great speaking with you, and I hope the audience enjoys the episode.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. So long, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Top Business Leaders Show, powered by Rise 25. Visit rise25.com to check out more episodes of the show and to learn more about how you can start your own podcast.